Welcome to episode 6 of Starting a Startup. In this episode, I'm going to continue working on Pocket Investor, the greatest real estate investment calculator ever created. I'm going to try my best to complete the sign-in process, and here's a little foreshadowing. There's a problem that I've discovered. Because I value your time, let's get right into it. In the last episode, I was able to create a user account, and I left off right here where nothing really happens after you click the sign in button. So in this episode, I need to take this token right here and pass it to the server each time I need to access a protected resource. So let's get that going. So whenever the user hits the sign in button, the server, API route, user, sign in page, which represents this function, will be executed. If there's an error, we return this message. Otherwise, we return right here. And so we notice that within this sign in function, we are calling this method, and then it returns back to us from the previous episode. It returns back an object that includes the name, the email, the token, much like we see here. So what I want to do here is to set a cookie using this function here, set cookie. And it's going to take in the HTTP response object. The method also takes in the name of the cookie that I want to create. In this case, I'll call it token. And lastly, it takes the value that I want to store in this cookie. And so now it's a matter of testing this. So I'll go ahead and navigate to the Applications tab of Chrome Inspector, enter my username and the password. And once I hit sign in, a cookie is created with the name that I provided just a moment ago and with the corresponding value. This token represents my user authentication, my ability to say I am a verified user, and therefore I can access protected resources on this website. The other thing I should do as well is to make sure that if the user provided inaccurate username or password, I should go ahead and set this value to therefore be null. The last thing to do is that once we receive this object and we have signed in, we need to now redirect from this page to the user's home page. So to do that, I'll need to go to Pages and the sign in page. And this is where we're outputting that value. So in essence, we need to now navigate to the user's dashboard upon successful sign-in. So to be able to redirect the user to a page, what I will need to do is modify this a bit. If the result exists and has a token, we'll go to a special page called the user slash, which is basically going to be the home page of the user. Currently, it does not exist, so I'll need to create that. But just to kind of demonstrate, I will modify this to say the home page. So when we sign in, redirect it to a different page, in this case, home page. However, I need to create it so that it's actually the user's home page. To create my user dashboard, what I decided to do is to search for a sort of tailwind dashboard. So that gave me some search results. And so now it's a matter of just kind of going through and figuring out what type of dashboard appeals to me that has a very kind of like a simplistic, easy, clean presentation to it. So I've been just kind of browsing for a little bit. This looks overly complicated, overly too much. This is too stylistic. So I just kind of browsed around. Eventually, I settled on this version. It's very straightforward. It looks very simple. And so I'm just going to go ahead and copy the entirety of the HTML. Now I'm going to create a layout, and I'm going to call this layout users. And then I'll go ahead and paste it within my template. And then I'll just create the script section for the layout. Next, I want to go ahead and create a new page. And I'll create it within the users folder. And then I'll copy this copy of the sign-in page and paste it into the users page and rename it index.
I'll go ahead and clean up the body of this user homepage by just erasing all of this and then putting in some dummy information and then updating some of the meta attributes for the page and clean up some of these functions that are not going to be needed. Then last but not least, I will update the layout for this page by indicating it to be that of users. And so when we sign into the page, we'll have the accurate layout. So as we can see, our layout is not working currently. I've tried a different number of iterations to get the layout to actually appear. So I found the solution online by going to GitHub, and I found this bug that was being discussed. And so apparently the solution is to wrap the contents of app.view around Nuxt layout. So I'm going to do that now. So I will go to app.view and wrap its contents around. And if I refresh, that didn't seem to work. All right, so the only other thing I'm going to try, I'll look at the documentation again. So let's see. I have it like this. So maybe if I try to copy this verbatim and then paste it and then take this out and paste that. And lastly, to update this to user. Fingers crossed. Hopefully this will work. So this is the end result of our copy and paste. We see a very nice user dashboard that also is CSS responsive. So for example, if I was to resize the page, we see that the left-hand menu is able to disappear. Likewise, when it disappears, you can then use this button to toggle it on and off. And by clicking outside, we're able to hide the menu bar. So all that's left here is to just go ahead and remove what we don't need. This is not necessary at this point. I want this to be a welcome page for the user. I want users to be able to spin off from here and jump right into making a real estate calculation analysis. So I will go ahead and modify this to remove those things I don't need. And least of which is going to be this table is going to be gone. I will convert it into a component, a table component for later reuse. Looks nice. I will probably transform it to a component as well. And likewise, these links here do not work. For example, if I click on it, it takes me to 404 and it's not defined. So I'll need to remove those. At the very beginning, we won't have a lot of options here. It'll just be the user's dashboard, maybe a property analysis for them to go to, and maybe the user settings. As the app builds up, becomes a lot more feature rich, then we'll be able to add some more links that takes to different places. But at the very beginning, it's going to be a very bare bones, minimum viable product version of this calculator. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and make some tweaks, get rid of this and some of these links. So to be able to do this, I'll make note of this word right here, and I can correlate that to just about right here. This div I've labeled right here represents the contents of the layout that I just built, or at least copied. So if I take this all out here, from here, extract that content, and then I'll replace this with a slot. And now from the page, if I refresh, we'll be able to see the contents of what I originally placed on the user's homepage. I modified the user layout to convert all those links that were on the side to an array of links that included the name of the routes, the title for the link, the icon for the link as an SVG HTML, and as well as the URL that it's going to be directed to. This way I can manage the different URLs by data rather than by hard coding it in HTML. And so I took those links, up here, and I'm iterating over them using a for loop, and then displaying each link and making them active in correspondence to whether or not the route name matches the link name. And then it'll apply different sets of classes. As well, it'll then vHTML the SVG icon and then display the title for the link. And of course, we still have our slots so that the content of each page can be embedded within here. With those changes, this is the end result where I have a dashboard, a new deal, which is going to allow the investor to create a new deal analysis. This will be a place for them to see all their previously analyzed deals. This is going to be only visible for the administrative users, such as myself, to manage settings across the entire web application. And an account is going to be for the user themselves to manage their individual profile settings. I think this is going to be all the pages I'll create, at least for the moment. If the application grows larger, I'll add additional pages on functionality. But overall, this is my minimum viable product skeleton. So if I was to build out these individual pages and their associated functionality, I'll call the project an overall success. But at this point, this is what I have.
So like I mentioned in the very beginning, I have a big problem that I've discovered, and that is mainly cookies. For the life of me, and literally, like, I have spent hours trying to implement this for this episode, and I cannot, for whatever I try, to get it to work. And the essential problem basically boils down to there's no way for me to properly manage cookies correctly. I am able to create cookies when a user signs in, and that cookie is returned back to the browser. However, if you dare refresh the page, the cookies are gone. Super frustrating. I've tried every single possible permutations in trying to figure out how to keep cookies from sticking around from refresh to refresh. Because really, that's how cookies work. It's only upon you actually closing down the browser should the cookies actually disappear completely. But a simple refresh should not annihilate the cookies you have created. So I have two choices. I can either pray that the user does not refresh the page, or upon them refreshing the page, they would have to go back to sign in before using the application any further. And that is just going to be a non-starter, I think. So over the next couple of days, what I'm going to try to do is figure out a way to solve this problem while still not impeding my own progress regarding application as a whole. I have a question out on Stack Overflow to try to hopefully get some answers. If you have an answer, please drop a comment below. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, please subscribe. It helps support the channel and support the series. And don't forget to like the video if you made it this far. My name is Solus Code. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, check out my other videos.